Hey guys, how's it going? I'm Alejandro, the CGI Nerd. In this video, we're going to be going over the process of modeling and simulating the sand for this time turner project. So that's what we're going to be doing in this video. If you're interested in getting access to the actual project files, I do have a Patreon now, and one of the tiers will allow you access to get the project files that I am working on for these tutorials. So if that's something you're interested, link down in the description. Other than that, let's get started with the tutorial. To start off with, I'm going to create a geometry node, and let's call this time turner. And inside of here, I'm going to create a sphere. And let's switch this over to a polygon mesh because I'm going to basically be doing poly modeling for all of this. Going to make this -1 so that way the top of the sphere, since we've got the radius here that's half of it, will be right on the ground. And then let's do a transform node. And in this transform node, basically it's going to be able to make a copy of that. And I will merge the original sphere with this transform node. So we should have both of them together, and on this one I'm going to move it up in the Y, should be 2. There we go. So that way we have kind of the idea of a shape of the hourglass. Let's connect both of these together. And in order to do that, what I'm going to do is switch over to primitive mode here, select, and let's go to the front viewport here, and I'm going to select the faces, maybe a little bit more than that. And I have the wrong node selected, so I want to make sure I select it here from the merge node. There. I'm going to delete those faces and then go back to the perspective mode. And I jumped out on accident. There we go. So that gives us an opening between the two spheres, and I just want to connect them together. So in the polygon shelf right here, if I switch over to the edge mode, I can select that edge there, and oops, I don't want the second edge selected yet. Let's deselect that. I'm going to do poly bridge, so it's going to say select the source. So I have an edge loop here. Just double clicking on one of the edges for that edge loop, and then push enter. And then now I want the destination, so I'm going to select that and then push enter. That is great. It's twisting here, so I want to make sure that I adjust the default pairing shift in order to make it straight here. I don't need as many divisions as I have right now. Let's do maybe something kind of like that. So that way I have an exact inner type thing, spacing there. And right now I'm using a curve to shape it, but we can also adjust some settings. So with the magnitude, what it's going to be doing, and stiffness, but what I want to see, the bridge. See if there's a setting. If not, we'll model it by hand. I just want it to taper kind of in the center. Destination. I don't think this will adjust it. Nope, that's just kind of a ability to offshoot it. Divisions. That's not what I want. The bridge. Normals, text, thickness. So we can make it thinner, and then we can do a ramp. And basically what I want is the center to actually come in. There we go. So we have a kind of transition, and I probably want to do a little bit more of it here, because when it does have the sand, I want it to be able to go through it a lot quicker and easier. Or I want it to actually slow down as it gets there. Okay, so now that I have that connected and I have the tapering happening, I can maybe take a transform node, and now that I have that, take this and scale it in the Y a little bit, just a tiny bit, so that way it's a little bit more elongated rather than being a perfect circle, because if I had it at 1, it looks perfectly round, and for an hourglass kind of shape, it just a little bit too round for my taste, I guess. So 1.1 is probably enough for what I have. Okay, so let's create a null node so that we can find this part easier if we need to use it again, which we likely will. So I'm going to create a null node, and I will connect the null node here, and let's call this hourglass shape. There we go. So that way we can access this and use it. Let's actually do underscore out, or sorry, out underscore, and have the out capitalized. And typically I like to capitalize this whole thing, so let's do that. Hourglass shape. So that way we know that this is an out node that we're working with. Okay, so we have this shape here, and we can do the inside as well. So I'm going to take this shape here, and I'm going to duplicate it with another transform. And basically, let's bring in a merge, and we're going to bring this together with that. And if we look at this, we have one shape, and if we look at this, we have another. So on this one, let's make it the inside part. Let's do a reverse node. And what that will allow us to do is reverse the normals, which we can see here. And then once we've reversed them, let's do a poly extrude. And what we can do with the poly extrude is basically make it a little bit more inside. So let's put it at like 0.2 or 0.02. So that way it's a little bit smaller. And then when we look at them both merge, we can't really tell anything here, but if we go to wireframe, let's put this back on Perez, we can see that it now has a thickness. We do want to use this inside shape here as the collision object for when we add sand. So I'm going to create another null node. And we'll call this out underscore our glass collider. There we go. So we have that, but our main visible part for the geometry is here, and we can use these things later when we need them. Okay, so that's going to be our hourglass shape. Now let's go in and take a look at creating the area this is going to be fitting into. I'm going to create a tube. And actually, since this is done here, let's take all of this here. And then we have this, this right here, create network box. So we can use this and kind of collapse it. It makes it a little bit easier to kind of manage and work with. And we can expand it if we needed to. And then we expand that. Okay, I got two network boxes inside of each other, so let's get this one out. My mouse has been having an issue with double clicking things. There we go. Let's add this a name, and we'll say this is the hourglass model. So I can minimize that, and then now we kind of know that we have these two out nodes that are coming from that. And this tube here is going to be, let's take this out here just so that we can get access to the bottom part. I'm going to create another merge node. And we're going to merge this together with this, so that way we have it, eventually it's going to be all put together as a single shape. Let's minimize this. And then here on the tube, let's go to its properties, and I want to make sure that it is rotated this way. I want it to be polygons. I want to have a cap. Let's adjust the radius, so that way it's nested inside of that other shape, and I'm going to make it quite a bit bigger. And now I want to make sure that I have enough details on this so that it looks smooth. And let's adjust the height because I want it to be thinner overall. Okay. And now I want to cut out the shape of the hourglass, but a little bit bigger. So if we look at this, we have the hourglass shape that we can work with. And oops, I don't know what I pressed. Let's do a poly extrude. And on this we're going to make it bigger. Let's put the display flag over here, but I want to be able to see this, so I'm going to template it for a moment and then extrude this so that we can see, oops, the shape around it, and I kind of like that. And let's see if this works. So what we're going to do is a boolean. And that boolean is going to go with this tube. So let's connect that there. And we'll connect this as the B slot. And let's display this. So this is kind of the intersecting part, which is the actual part that we want to not see. We want to cut that out. So let's go into intersect and let's put this to subtract. There we go. So we have a shape there that is subtracted, and if we look at the final version right now, we have that shape in there. And now looking at this, I can tell pretty quickly that this is just too thick. So let's go to the tube, and we have the height. I'm just going to make this not as tall. I like that a lot more. And then maybe on this poly extrude, take the distance and make it less, just so it's a little bit more form-fitting, and I think that will end up looking a lot better. That is great. Looking at this, I think the it'd be nice to have a little bit of an edge and maybe some beveling going on. So let's try to do a little bit of that on the tube before we boolean it. So let's go back and look at the tube level here. And I know that I want to take these faces here. And what I'm going to do is tell it to extrude those faces. And what I want to do is inset them a bit, and then extrude again. And now we can take the distance and maybe subtract it a little bit. And this distance is just too high still, so I'm going to put it at like 0.05. Not 0.05, just 0.05. Negative 0.05. There we go. So we have a little bit of a rim around that, so when we look at this, it looks a lot nicer having that. Now, along with that, I'd like to maybe take the edges and bevel them a little bit, so I'm going to switch over to edge mode, select that edge loop, this edge loop, this edge loop, and this edge loop. Maybe actually thinking about it, I might want to do it after we boolean it, which, yeah, I'm going to do it that way. So after the boolean, if I select the edge loops, again just by double clicking the edge loops that I want, I also want to get these. Nope. Oh, it looks like these, let me test this really quick, might not be merged completely. So let's look at the perimeter level, and if I take a single face there and just move it, no, it looks like it's good. It's just the edge loop was going in the wrong direction. I don't need this edit anymore. I'm going to delete it and reselect the edges that I want. This inside one here, this inside one here, and then I do want the one that goes all the way around, but it is going to just select individual loops. So what might make it a bit easier to actually do is to get this in a one of the views, maybe like the top view or something like that, and look at it in wireframe. And basically I want everything except that inside edge. So now that I'm in edge mode here, I can select it and hopefully I can get everything that I'm trying to do there. And this, which basically selects everything. But then what I want to do is just go through and deselect these inner edges. And then let's double check that that worked. Going back into the perspective view. And overall that looks really close to what I want. I just want to deselect a few more. You can see close to the poles it was having a little bit of issues figuring out what edges I wanted. So cleaning that up there, and then it looked like I was having the same issue up here. So just deselecting those little bit of extra edges there. And then I don't need these. And that looks like about it. Great. Oh, I don't want these either. I don't know if this is actually going to make it faster or not, but than what I was doing before, probably not, but I tried. Let's see if I do this. Yeah, I can deselect multiple of them like this. So what I'm doing is pushing A, Control and A on the keyboard to be able to deselect a range. So I'm going to push Control and click, and then now if I hold down Control and A on the keyboard, I can do more of the loop that I'm trying to do. So that should make it a little bit faster for us. Oops. There we go. So I have all those edges there. And just in case so that I don't lose it, inside of the model tab we have group node. Let's group this so that way we have access to it if we need to. So let's write this as beveled edges GRP. There we go. So it's a group node. It's called Beveled Edges Group. And then let's add a poly bevel. And then inside of this group, basically, I want to select the Beveled Edges group that we just created. And then now we can take a look at adding a little bit of a bevel. And I just want a tiny bit of a bevel. I don't want it to be too much where it messes up with the shape. I just want it to be rounded off so that way from the distance it looks much better. Okay, let's look at the merged version. And I really like that. Okay, now that I have that, let's create another ring on the outside, like a pipe. So I'm going to use the tube. Yeah, let's do this and then add a transform. And actually, let's break it from here, because I don't really want it transformed from there necessarily. I can actually transform it from that other extrude. So I'm going to push Y and cut it here. And then I can do it from here. I can take the uniform scale and bring it up a little bit. And go into primitive mode, select these and kind of get rid of that. And merge it here, so that way we have the outer circle. And then here, after that blast node, so let's just visualize that there. Let's go into edge mode. Take both of these edge loops together. I'm going to go in and scale. There we go. Okay, and then I can do a fuse. And what the fuse will do is connect the vertices together over here. I just need to increase the distance until they snap. And I am not visualizing it that way, so I need to make sure that I have the display on. And once I have it on at the default setting of 0.01, it did snap, so that's great. Okay, so now I'm kind of thinking of how this is going to animate. So let's see, if we had a transform here. Yep. So this would probably rotate along the X here. Like that. But I'd want this to go a separate direction, so maybe I need a third ring. I definitely need a third ring. So basically what I can do is do another transform and then connect this to this and merge it here. This transform, let's make it even bigger. I don't need that edit. I accidentally put that there. Okay, so this gives us all the freedom that we need. This is going to be our outer circle, or let's not call it circle, but ring. Great. Then this is our mid ring. And then looking at this, this should be the clock itself, and I want it, or the sand itself, and I want it to actually be together with this ring. So if we bypass that, let's not have the bevel for right now. It's creating some issues. We'll do it later, or I can just bypass it the way I had it. It'll look better. But I want to add another merge. And then now that that is merged, we can go back to this hourglass shape. and take this merge here and connect it with that one. So that way this will be all one piece when we add a transform. Transform, we'll call this inner ring, even though it's not completely just a ring. Okay, so when we look at all of this together, I can have the outer one. What we're going to want to make it do is rotate on the X. So it goes like that. But then we'll have it pinned to the mid ring that can, not on the X, but on the Z. Nope, not on the Z, on the Y. Can go this way. So that way we get another range of motion. It'll work something like that. So now let's get these things connected, and I'm going to do that with some more pipes. And we can shape it in a little bit later just so that I can visualize the way it's going to be working. Or not pipes, but tubes. There we go. So this one basically going to be together with the mid ring. So let's go over here in this section, and I'll move this off to the side so that way it's just easier to see everything. Okay, and then we have that there. Let's do a merge. Okay, and then this we are going to turn on end caps. Gonna switch this over to polygons, rotate it 90 degrees on the Z. Take the, not rotate, but the radius down. And then let's look at the way all of this is. And basically this one, if we shift the center on the X over here, what it's going to do is basically be this right here. So let's take the radius smaller and then shift it a little bit more that way. And then we'll bevel out some holes and stuff so that way it looks proper. But basically, once we have that, this is the one that will be twisting, and that will be on the X. So that way we can spin the whole thing around. So now that we have that, let's do a transform here. And this transform, what I want to do is basically get the tube wherever it's center, so let's put it at -4 here. I'm going to copy that parameter. Actually, let me see if I take this really quick and I rotate it around the Z. Well, this on this transform. Rotate Z, will that give me the effect? Yeah, that's what I want to do. Okay. So what I'm going to do is take the rotate Z and do it 180 degrees, so that way it's on the other side. And let's merge it together. So now we have the time turners on those sides, and then let's take the height and just slightly make it smaller so that way it doesn't protrude through the other side. And let's look at it all together. There we go. So this one here, if we rotate it on the X, will give us this effect, which is perfect. And then this is the inner one. Cool. So let's merge this together with the inner one. And we don't need that connected down there because it's going to feed down that way. So now when we animate the rotate X, it should move all of this together here, which is what we want. And then let's get this tube here, because I'm going to, we'll create a separate tube, completely separate tube. Tube. And then this is going to go from the outer to the inner, and we'll do it kind of merging it here. So let's merge that now. And then let's take this in the Y, move it up around here. Let's make it with end caps on, make it polygon. And let's look at the radius from this one. It doesn't necessarily need to be the same, but it's at 0.1. So let's start off with the same. 0.1 and 0.1. There we go. And then the height definitely needs to be much smaller. Let's move this up. Actually, let's kind of shake this off. There we go. I'm going to put the merge right above the transform. So it's the same thing, it's just merging it a little bit ahead of it, so that way we can move it all together with that transform that already exists. Okay, so I'm going to do another transform. And then we'll connect the tube to that transform there. And we will rotate it 180 degrees. On this transform node. 180, so that should give us the bottom version, and then we can merge it together. And let's just make sure that that is all connected there, which it is. Great. So now if we animate this inner ring, which is going to be on the rotate Y, we should get that. And let me save this really quick, because I have not saved it yet, and that would be bad. Go to the D drive, CGI Nerd, and then let's create a new folder. Time Turner. Time Turner. Model. Accept. Okay, so now that I have that saved, let's look at a animation with the mid ring and the inner ring, and we'll do it like 48 frames. So let's start off with the mid ring. It's going to rotate on the X. And I'll make this kind of some settings on the outside. so that way it'll be easier. And let's take the expression and toggle expression. There we go. I don't know what happened there. I just ended it. Okay. So on the mid ring here, it's going to be on the the rotate X, and then on the inner ring, it's going to be on the rotate Y. So I'll set a keyframe there. And then at 48 frames, let's say we did it 360 on both, so let's do 360. And then on this one, let's put it at 360. Set a keyframe. And then now when we see it play, we should see it all working the way we expect it to be. Great. Okay, so I don't want the animation now, I just wanted to make sure that it worked, so at frame 1 I'm just going to delete channels there, and then here I am going to delete channels as well. I think this inner one I like the way it is. The outside one I do want to have a little bit of a kind of handle where we can spin it just for the way it looks like. So I believe that is this. Yep. So what I want to do is just take that face over here, go to primitive, that face, go to polygon, and what we're going to do is a poly extrude. And I want to take the inset and make it a little bit bigger like that, then do another poly extrude. And this time I don't want to inset it, I just, oops, not divisions, but distance. So it is inset a little bit with more division, or not divisions, but a little bit of a distance there. And then maybe I can take an edge mode every other edge. There we go, and then scale it in towards itself. I don't want to scale it in all directions. We'll do vertically, and then okay, it's causing some issues because we don't have any polygons on these faces, so let's not worry about that for this tutorial. We could make it, but I'm just going to kind of keep it basic then, but it has a handle now. That looks cool. It could also be done as texturing if you wanted to. Okay, so now I want to have a place where the sand is going to start. So I have all this tube stuff, and let's find up here. So we have the hourglass collider here. That's the inside one. So let's take that. We'll display this really quick. And then let's create another sphere. Or not there, but in here. And then I'm going to switch this over to polygon mesh. Let's bring the, not the radius, but the center down. Basically, I want to just create the sand area down there. And let's see if it'll work with this or if I have to reverse it again. Let's do a Boolean. So I want the reverse of that. So let's say let's see if we do subtract. Okay, it's because it's the normals are flipped. So let's do a reverse. So that way the normals will be what we expect them to be. There we go. So then we get the area of where the sand is going to be. And that will, let's create a null node. And we'll call this, with all caps, out sand. And then we'll merge it here. And then let's look at the whole thing here. And if we look at it in wireframe mode, we can see that the sand is there. Great. And then we'll end up making that dynamic and everything in a little bit, but let's go out to the object level and we'll go to the settings, parameter interface, and I like all this stuff that we have here, but I'm going to create a new folder and let's call this time turner settings. Great. And we'll put this on top. And then let's click apply. And basically that's going to create a new tab for us there. And then I want to be able to transfer the settings that I want to be able to animate onto here. So let's lock this. So I'm going to pin it in place. And I'm going to, what is it? Here, there it is. I want to split right left. So that way I have another one here, and this one's not pinned. So let's go back into the time turner here. And I want to make sure that we have the rings that we're going to be able to, oh, I lost the pin. Let's go here, time turner, make sure that's pinned, and then this is the one that's not pinned. So the mid ring is what we have selected here, which is great. This is my time turner node, so let's create a float attribute. Well, we need two of them, so that's great. My double clicking mouse. Okay, so let's label these, and we're going to say this is going to be rotate mid ring, and then for the label, rotate mid ring, and I actually want that on top, but in that folder, there we go. Then here I'm going to say rotate inner ring, and here we're going to say rotate inner ring, and let's do accept. Should give us that, and then let's go back into its settings before we go too much further because I didn't set it. I have this, and the range here, let's say we have negative 3,600 and 3,600, so that way it can do 10 spins, which would probably be too much for what we need, but that gives us something to do. It gives us a range, and then we'll do the same thing over here. Negative 360, 3,600, and then 3,600. Oops, not invisible. There we go. And then if we go into channels, we can see that the default's set to 0 and the default's set to 0 for both of them. So that is great. I'm gonna apply, accept. So it starts off here, but you can rotate it in either direction. So that way, if we needed to, we can animate it. Now we just need to connect these parameters to the parameters here, and we're not really like limiting it. It's just a slider right now that goes to there, so we can actually, like, if we wanted it to do 6,000, it will go all the way up to 6,000. It's just its defaults will go up to 10 spins. Okay, so let's connect those parameters here. The mid ring is going to be rotating along the X, so let's copy the parameter for the rotate mid ring, and then here in the rotate X we're going to paste relative reference. So now we should get it where we can rotate that, and we can, so that's great. And then we're going to need the inner ring, so let's copy parameter from the outside object level, and we're going to paste that into the rotate for the Y in the inner ring. Paste relative reference. So let's test this. Awesome. Okay, so we have that animation happening. I know that this kind of had some star thing going on with its design, so I'm going to try and do that really quick. Let's see if we can do something like a circle. And I'll start off with this here. The permitted type, let's change this to polygon. And now that I have that, I can, let's start off with its defaults and see if I like the way the number of edges are, but if not, we can actually take more. Oops, not that one, but this one, this one, this one, and this one. There we go. So we have a star shape here. And then let's select the primitives. We got that, and then under polygon we can do a poly extrude. Pull that out. We can have it pretty big. And on this one we do want the back facing. So if we look at the extrude, it should have The ability to turn on the back facing. These are the groups. Output back, there we go. So if we check that on, we get the back of the geometry as well. And let's see, I think this is, nope, that's not the ring. This is the ring, there we go. So here we basically can go over here and make a few copies of this and then merge it with this before it does the boolean. So let's go in and merge. And bring this together here. Do a transform. There, and then we can do a scale on the, actually let's push this back so that it goes all the way through and we can see that it's working. And then let's do a uniform scale. Okay, so I have a star there and we can make multiple copies of this. So going to have another transform. And let's make this one smaller. And this is moving into Z, so let's sure that it's here, and let's scale this on. Oh, we're rotating. I don't want to rotate, I want to scale. Just so we have much longer shape. Doesn't really matter how long it is, we just need it to be able to subtract that space. There you go. So let's create a merge here just so that we can bring all of the stars that we're cutting out together beforehand. And then what we will do is put it together there. Copy and paste, so I have another one. And then move it around. Copy, paste. Copy, paste. So there's going to be a ton of them merged down there, but at least it should look pretty interesting. And then maybe with some of these we can rotate them in different manners. Copy, paste. this one, I'm just going to make it even smaller. Oh, it looks like I messed something up there. There we go. Okay, so I want to just take the overall scale, make it even smaller. Then let's take the handle and align it with the world. This is going to go back into the merge. And then we're going to need quite a few more of these. Smaller ones. Oops. I think I need more space, so let's move all this across there. I'm going to connect that into the merge. And let's look at the Boolean. That's what I want to see. Copy paste. Oops. Merge that down. That there, and then I could probably have done this with a scatter a lot faster. Oh well. I'm almost done anyways. So I bring that down to the merge and put that there. Probably want like 3 more, maybe 4 more, 5 more. Just put L, see what happens. Actually, that's not too horrible. Oops. Then let's minimize that. So that's our whole network right now. I want to get more of these transforms, the little ones, probably towards the end. There we go. Copy paste. Bring that in. Copy paste. Try that again. Copy paste. Copy paste. And fill it in. Maybe right there. I think that's maybe enough. So let's do a transform. So I'm going to connect this into that, merge it down there, but this one I want to rotate on the Z 180 degrees. So that way we have some on the other side as well. And then maybe in the Y, scale it -1. And once I do that, the normals kind of freak out. So let's try doing a reverse node. And that should fix it, hopefully, where it's cutting out all those shapes. And there we go, we have the final version of it. If we wanted to, we can add some more stars over here, but I think I am okay with the way it's looking right now. And we should have the ability to control these also. Great. I'm going to save this project really quick, and then let's take a look at making the sand. So with the sand that we have right now, we have it in there. That is fine, but let's find that out sand right here, and I don't necessarily want it merged in there right now. So let's go into the outer level here. And then I'm going to create a sand, or a geometry node. And let's name this sand geo. I'm going to merge, or do an object merge. And then in here, we can select the object that we want to bring in. So we have the time turner, and anything that we wrote in caps will pop up on top. Gonna accept the sand there. So that way we can work on it on a different node. So that is pretty awesome to be able to do that. And then now that we have that, I'm going to save again, because I'm going to convert that into actual sand. So let's look at the grains here, and we will do in, we can do RBD grains or dry sand. Let's do dry sand. So it's taking a moment to calculate it out, and we can see that it gets the sand in there. We have the auto dot network with everything working there, and let's push play. We should see it simulating and coming down. That is perfect. Okay, so now let's lay out the scene just so that we have all of that lined up. And I think, yeah. Let's take the time turner, and under collisions, let's make that a static object. Select that and then push enter. So let's double check that that brought it in. We'll lay it out so we can see as a static solver we do have the time turner. Let's push play, and can see that it kind of pushes everything out because it feels that, or it thinks that it was on the inside only. So that is not going to work for us properly. What I want to do is be able to get that inner collider and work directly with that. So let's look at, actually, let me pause the video really quick and I'll test it out, and then that way I'm not wasting you guys' time, and then I'll tell you exactly how I achieve it, just to make sure that I'm doing it right. Alright, give me a moment. See you guys. Okay, so what we want to do to be able to do it, so right now it's going out. I haven't changed anything at this point. What we want to do is go into the Autodot network, and on the time turner we can switch this to be, instead of the default solver, to use the surface. So when we do that, it will calculate out the surface, and we already flipped the normal so that way it would collide with it. So that works out great for us. It's a bit slow right now, and this can be a slower calculation, but also we can make it a little bit easier for it to work. So if we go into the time turner node here, we can see when we made it a passive collider, it has these extra nodes here where it's feeding into the Autodot network. And what we can do is create a blast node. And really we only need that inside part to be able to calculate the collisions. So what we can do is click on this button, and then let's zoom inside of this. Double click on the inside wall here, and then push enter. So when we do that, let's see if it actually did it. Yep. When it does that, it actually deletes those faces, which is not what we want. We want the reverse of that. So let's check this box here that says delete non-selected, and we get that box there. So that's what's going to feed in there, but the display flag, we want it on this one so that we can see everything. The actual flag for it to create the collider, it's going to, or the actual node that's going to create the collider is this one, and that way we have more limited geometry that's going to be actually influencing it. So let's push play, and we can see that it all collides there, and it's calculating way faster than it was a moment ago. Okay, so now that we have that, let's test out. So we'll hold it for a second here, 24 frames, which would be a second. And then we're going to animate the mid-ring, and let's say it takes another second to rotate it 40, or not 40, but 180 degrees, so that way it's upside down. 180, and then set a keyframe there as well. And then let's go back to frame 1 and see if this works. So it's going to go through and calculate out everything, and then once it hits frame 24, it should rotate and be upside down, and it doesn't follow. So why is it doing that? The reason is, if we go to our Autodot network, inside of our Autodot network, and let's view the collider here. We set the animation, but when we look at it here, you can see that the collider is actually staying still. So how do we fix that? The way we fix that is on this static object node. If we look here, we have a checkbox that says use deforming geometry. So let's turn that on and see if that flips now. So it's going to calculate up to frame 24. Then it should flip around, and now we can see that it's actually staying inside of there, and it looks like we have enough substeps where it's not freaking out and going through the glass, and it's actually pouring down to the other side. So that's looking all great. What I want to do now is, in the grain update, I like the way it's looking, but I want it to probably be kind of more fine, the grain. So I'm going to take this, and instead of putting 0.05, let's put it at 0.02. So it should give us a lot more fine sand in there. It's going to take longer to calculate, but we should have a bit better simulation when it's pouring through. Not that it wasn't bad, that bad before. It's just going to give us a little bit more of a kind of smaller grain sand when it calculates out. It is taking a little bit longer now to calculate, which is to be expected because we've given it a lot more particles to calculate out the simulation. And then the other thing that I kind of want to do is set up some more animation stuff and be able to add some materials and stuff like that, but I'll do that with the tutorial off. What I'm going to do is, once this is all calculated and I've added some more textures and all that, I will show you what the final rendered result looks like, and we'll see you guys in a moment. Here we go. This is what the render for the time turner looks like. It took about 12 hours to render for the whole 10-second sequence, but I think it looks pretty okay. I used the colors for my channel, so I could have spent some time and made it like all like look like brass and stuff like in the movie, but this is what I got for this version of my time turner. If you are interested in access to the files for this project, I actually have a tier on Patreon, so check it out, link in the description. Other than that, please like, share, and subscribe this video. I appreciate it if you do. It really helps out my channel. And we'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.